Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Another great week, Paul. I'm excited for our guests to come on. Nick Seaton is going to be on the show, and looking forward to picking his brain. I know you had a conversation with him, so I think it's going to be another great talk, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We want us to subscribe, though, right? We want to subscribe.
Yeah, make sure that you do subscribe to the show, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, your favorite podcast platform. Make sure that you stay updated on all the upcoming content, however you receive that information. So to stay up on all these great interviews that are coming up. Thanks for the reminder, Paul.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, I know Nick. I've known him for a year or two, and the guy's gone through hell. No question about it. But he's coming out on the other side. Substance abuse is such a powerful thing. To go through it, people use it as a crutch, and they use it to suppress their feelings so they don't have to feel their feelings. So it's very hard to get out of it, and Nick is getting out of it, and he's going to share his story with us. And I know you have a summit coming up, and I know it's not really about substance abuse, but it's about men feeling good about themselves. So I'd like you to kind of go over it with us, because I think a lot of men and women will get a lot out of your summit.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this, and I've been working on it for a while. And there's a lot of amazing speakers that are going to be part of it. And I think it is relevant because the substance abuse, it's a distraction. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, excessive social media, TV, all of those are distractions from what's going on in our lives. And normally when we resort to those type of distractions, it's because we don't want to face something. There's some type of emotion there going on that we don't want to address. And so I'm curious to how Nick brings it up in his story, because it's really important to recognize in yourself when you have this type of behavior going on in your life where you're distracting yourself from your life, you're escaping your life. There's something going on, and we may not, think it's an issue. It's like, oh, I don't drink that much, or I don't watch that much TV. But you think about everything that's been going on all of last year. More people have been, drinking alcohol, doing drugs, binge watching, shows because there's nothing else to do, quote unquote, as they see. But I know you and I have been very busy, and I find myself sometimes I distract myself as well. And there's a difference between saying I'm going to take a break and just kind of. Sometimes you need a brain break. Be like, I'm gonna watch a show on Amazon or whatever, Netflix or something, and just take a brain break. But there's a difference between that and just letting your mind go all day long. Be like, I'm just gonna watch a whole series, 8 hours, and just escape my life because I'm not happy with what's going on. So I think Nick will be able to share some of that insight, and it's an important thing to point out to yourself. And I think a lot of the speakers that are going to be on the summit talk about certain things like that, talk about those distractions that we have in our lives. Like you said, whether it men or women, we have those things, but you need to become self-aware, figure out what those things are, and then be very purposeful in those type of, actions that you take.
I think it's time to bring him out.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring out Nick. So Nick Seaton is 26 years old. He's a musician and bartender from Placerville, California, currently living in Huntington Beach. He's been dealing with anxiety and depression and has overcome a lot of different trials throughout his life, including family, friends, and emotional abuse, personal abuse, and other related issues as well. He's a musician and he is working on starting his own coaching business. So everyone welcome out Nick Seaton. All right, everybody, welcome Nick Seaton to the show. Nick, glad to have you here. I know you've talked with Paul before, but I'm excited to pick your brain, and man, glad to have you here on the Actions Limits podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. It's gonna be fun.
I share your story with our audience because I know you're involved in a bunch of different things, but you know what got you to this point where you're at right now, Nick?
So this year has been, I think, tough for me and everyone. I've kind of gone through life. It's been kind of an adventure, I guess. I think that I moved down to Southern California about a year and a half ago, about 6 months before the pandemic started, with aspirations of doing music down here. It's something that's been a passion of mine my whole life. I started doing music when I was 9. And then just with the pandemic and everything going on, I'm a bartender as well. So there's just a big flip, in my world, basically, with music, not being able to perform live, and then my job, not being able to, do a job. So kind of made me have to reorganize my whole life. Sorry over there. So I went through a lot of hard times. I kind of had to have some pretty hard realizations about my mental health and what I needed to do to kind of fix that and get that in better working forms and adjust to that. And, I went through a lot of different mental breakdowns this last year just to kind of, figure stuff out. And it's not easy. So I feel like for me, doing this podcast, I want to give people, some hope that there's, options and opportunities out there to better yourself. I feel like if this can be informative and instructional for people that are going through hard stuff, then I'm here to talk. So.
Nick, talk to us about your upbringing. Were you facing with mental illness, as a child as well, or is this something new from the pandemic and all this other stresses that came about?
So I think that I always had anxiety. I think that it was manageable up until the pandemic, but it kind of started getting out of control during the pandemic. It started to get unmanageable. For me, it started to make me feel like I couldn't, get up and do my daily things. And, I think that there was a couple other things that happened in there that just were not cool. And I needed to get a grip on it. And I didn't really even know how to do it. They don't teach you that stuff in school. So, I think it was always there underlying, but it really came out during the pandemic. Yeah.
How are you dealing with that now, man? Like, is there some tools that you've learned, a process that you're using to deal with that?
Yeah. So I didn't really want to go the medical side. I didn't really want to take medication or anything like that for it. But it got to the point where I was like, all right, I have to do this. Like, I have to I started with therapy.
Sure.
And then I went the holistic route. So I went to see a holistic doctor, and she gave me a specific vitamin regimen to take daily, and that just wasn't cutting it for me. So I had to go through the process. I had to get evaluated. Not a fun process if you've ever done that.
Can you describe that process a little bit for us?
Yeah, so it's extremely stressful, and I think that the whole system, I have Kaiser, so it's fairly decent, medical plan. But they do make it so stressful. For somebody going through, and I have mild, like what's considered mild anxiety. So anybody dealing with like moderate or severe anxiety, it'd probably be just, you'd probably go out of your mind. I mean, they, when you're on the phone with the operator for mental health, they're like, they hit you with if it's a medical emergency, call 911. And for somebody who has anxiety, that's like a trigger. I mean, it triggered me, and I understand that they do that through a severe anxiety or panic attack. It's not really what you want to hear. And the questions they ask and kind of, are you suicidal? Are you, like just there's such hard questions that they have to ask you. And it's not an easy process. They don't make it all fluffy. And, I don't know. I know they don't want to sugarcoat it, but they could probably do it a little better than they did. That's my
talk to us about your struggle with substance abuse, because I know that you've come a long way in such a short time. Talk to us about that struggle, on how you got through it.
So, I'm a DJ and producer. So a lot of musicians experiment with drugs, and, I, like many others, I got in with some friends and we went to a concert.
How long ago was this?
When you're talking, this was 3 years ago. I started smoking weed when I was like 17. I guess that's when I started using. I guess you could use that as a substance. It was always fun for me. It was never like to get high and get away from my problems. It was always just to have fun. That was the idea. And it was also social. It wasn't like I was by myself just getting high. But it started with that off and on. And then I started taking Molly and ecstasy, which is like I guess a kind of a form of a psychedelic and stimulant. And that, I think, really took a big toll on my mental state, which I didn't think it, at the time. You're just having fun. You're just with friends and you're partying, and then you don't think about all the repercussions of what comes after that. And it makes sense why I have like anxiety and why it got unmanageable, is because it takes a toll on your psychological.
At that point,
mindset.
How often were you using Molly and all those other recreational drugs?
So when I was 23, I would say that it got pretty bad. I mean, there was a point there where I was using it like 4 times a month, maybe 5 times. It was kind of a little bit, that was about 6 months I was using it pretty heavy. And there's a couple times where it just got out of hand. Like one of my friends ended up going to the hospital. We were, out one night, and then, I had like a mental breakdown in the car, like when I was just, I was messed up. And that was kind of a wake up call for me. And then I was like, all right, I need to pump the brakes on this. And then I'd say about 6 months later, I started dating this girl who was like completely straight edge. She just, she drank every now and then. And I cold turkey quit for like 6-7 months. And that kind of gave me a little bit of perspective, and I was like, okay, this is really damaging. Like I need to not do this for a little while. So it could have gotten to the point where it was like really, really, really abusive. And I always think I was like 1 or 2 steps behind that. But it could have gotten out of control, and it's kind of one of those things that like, it opens your mind to a different, perspective. I feel like there's these like gateways that you enter when you're, on drugs, but there's a big responsibility to that. It's not, it's not something small to take in, So, I think anybody using or doing anything like that, like they just need to always be careful, and realize what their intentions are for doing them,
Share your story about that Halloween when you were DJing for one of the last times live event, and what transpired there.
So I had recently went back to Northern California, stayed with my parents for a little bit, just going through, I was doing the holistic stuff, went to therapy. I came back to Southern California, and I was supposed to play a show, my first show down here in Long Beach for Halloween. And the super emotional experience, because I was supposed to play a show right before the pandemic. So this is like supposed to be like my moment, And I had all these like life goals. I had, I wanted to get my own apartment, which I did that. I wanted to be able to like walk to work. I wanted to be able to live by the beach. I started checking all these like life goal boxes off the list, right? And I wanted to be a musician playing in LA or down in Southern California. And so I was like, that last box was starting to be checked off. And it was that day, it was that Saturday. I was just sitting at my apartment getting ready, kind of running through the emotions and feeling a lot of stress and anxiety before the show even. Just nervous, excited, just everything. And then my friend, she ended up coming over to my apartment and she's like, "Hey, why don't you go to church with me?" And I'm religious. I was brought up Christian. And I had been wanting to go back to church for a little bit now. And I felt like, I felt like I was being called back to church, to be honest. I felt like it was kind of like God telling me that, I was probably going down the wrong path for a long time. So anyways, I went to church that day and man, it was like an emotional roller coaster. I mean, I remember just sitting there and I just started bawling. I mean, just crying, because I realized how like far my life was off track. And I think in that moment, I realized how many people I'd hurt along the way and how much I had been hurting myself and abusing myself in that way. And, I really wanted to go down a fresh start and a fresh path. And so when I went into that show that night, I was already a wreck. And, but I was like refreshed. I don't know. In a way, I was like really excited to do this thing. And so, I had driven to this in Signal Hill around, and it was a warehouse. So it was like a rented out warehouse. So it's kind of underground. And I just kind of realized when I got there, I was like, this is so unsafe. Like immediately right off the bat, the club owner guy kind of seemed sketchy. Like I just got these weird vibes. And I remember just being so I was, sober at this point too. I hadn't done any drugs for like 6 months. And I walk into the show, and I'm listening to the music. It's all like house music, EDM. And I'm just kind of realizing like how kind of toxic the whole scene was going into it. And especially coming at it from a sober perspective, I realized how messed up all these people were in this one place, trying to find, a safe spot. And how unsafe it really is, that was a scary thing. So I'm getting ready to do my show and I'm all antsy, I'm all nervous. And like I get up there and I kind of just let everything out, I just kind of let all this energy and all these repressed emotions and everything just like out in my performance. But I think I've always like really felt people's energies and stuff like that. Like that's something that's just been like a talent or a gift of mine naturally. And I could feel like the energy off all these people that were high on something, some substance, like, and I feel like they were kind of crossing into my boundary, and like that really like kind of messed me up while performing. And it was kind of scary, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like I think that was a little traumatizing for me. I was going through it and I was just like, it was like a lot of epic highs and a lot of epic lows, when I was performing. And I think that's also just artists in general. Like they have to feel that like wave of just, constant down and ups, and I think that's the ability to see things differently in a different perspective as an artist. It's like your ability to feel emotion on an extreme level. And so, I was a mess that show. That was not the best show I ever. It was the best show in my mind, but it was probably the worst show in reality because of all this, all this shit that I was going through. And, like I bawled my eyes out on stage. Like I was totally, just I started like preaching to these people on drugs about God, which didn't really go over too well, to be honest. Not the best thing to do when everybody's high on drugs when you're like, oh, go to church.
Sure.
But I needed it. The most important thing that I needed was I did it for myself. So I started to kind of stop pleasing the crowd and started to please myself. And that's when I realized like none of this matters, you know, none of this really, like this whole facade, this whole, you know, need for love, this whole need to be, you know, liked is a bunch of bullshit. And I was like, all right, I'm ready to kind of change that. So the show ended up, you know, it ended up going really well. And then as soon as I finished the show, I immediately got the hell out of there. I was like, I need to leave. I grabbed my crap. I drove him. I got in my car immediately. I called my mom. You know, we had this like, you know, emotional conversation. She's like, all right, well, I'm glad you're out of there. You know, and I just remember on my way home, you know, it was Halloween, so there was a lot of commotion. But I remember just seeing like drunk driving accidents, just a bunch of commotion on the streets on the way home. Like I was pulling into Huntington where I live, and there's some guy passed out, just belligerent drunk, just flat on the ground, you know, like, and I remember seeing all these things and I'm like, have I never noticed this before? Like, am I just noticing this now? Like how toxic this all is, you know, how toxic this partying life is, and how uncontrollable it can get. You know, I went home that night and you know, I had like another spiritual awakening, you know, and, you know, I cried out to God, you know, just to free me of this crap that was going on in my life. And, you know, I think that night, you know, I really was at an epic low, you know, and, you know, being at that big of a high moment, you know, comes a low. And I think I hit it that night. And I woke up the next morning and I kind of realized like all I really need with my music is just me and my guitar and my voice, you know, and I don't need this DJ equipment. I don't need this electronic noise. I just need my voice and a guitar, you know, and the simple things, you know. And I remember waking up that next morning and or maybe not even sleeping, honestly. I don't know if I slept that much that night, to be honest. And I just walked down to the beach. It was sunny. I just grabbed my guitar and I sat in the sand and I just looked at the waves and I started singing, you know, started playing my guitar. And you know, that was way more fulfilling to me than any show I played, because I was just playing for myself, you know. And then that day I called my dad, and you know, we both agreed that I should come back home for a little bit. So I booked a flight that day, and you know, I had grabbed my guitar, just a side bag, you know, brought my guitar through the terminal. And this is a really cool part. I was in the terminal and I was sitting there, and I saw this guy sitting across from me, and I could tell he was like, you know, hadn't slept. He looked like crap. You know, I looked like crap. And I noticed he was wearing this Team Purkis shirt from the movie Heavyweights. I don't know if you guys have seen that with Ben Stiller. It's a movie about like fat kids. It's like a fat camp. It's pretty funny. It's one of Ben Stiller's first movies. And I remember I was sitting there, we were talking, and I was just like, oh, where are you going? He's like, oh, I'm going back home. And I'm like, oh, okay, are you going to your family? He's like, no, I don't have family over there. And I was like, okay, cool. And, you know, we just got to talking, and we were talking for about 5 minutes and stuff or so. And I look at him, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I play you a song? And his face just lit up. He's like, oh, I'd love that. You know, I'd love for you to play me a song. And I look around at everybody, and I was like, you guys all mind if I play you a song? And they're like, yeah. And so I played him this song I wrote about 8 months ago called Home. And, you know, within about 35 seconds of the song, the guy had called his brother. You know, there's people filming me on their phones. There's this other lady that was crying. You know, once I had, you know, everybody was just, the energy that I got from that was the energy I needed from performing. You know, it was heartfelt. It was heartwarming. It was love. You know, it was all out of good energy. And, you know, you talk about a polar opposite experience. The night before, I had been promoting that toxic energy, that enabling energy, you know, that need to get fucked up off a drug, or, you know, alcohol, or, you know, whatever, you name it, you know. And then a total different experience, just of like purity and just getting lost in a moment, just organically, you know. And that was something I could never even explain, how good it felt, you know. And then I remember finishing the song and, everybody was clapping. And then I had another guy, yelling at me to play another song. And, I had this couple come up to me and talk to me about their life story and just like all this stuff. And then I walked over to the Starbucks right there to get stuff. And this lady bought all my stuff. She's like, no, get this, get that. I'm paying for it. Don't even worry about it, And then I had people coming in the plane. They're like, oh, you should play some music in the plane. You should. And I'm just like, this is what music's about. This is what, this is what I need to do. This is where I need to go. So, it was an epic experience. I can't even recreate that.
Wow, that's an awesome story, man. And like you said, those ups and downs. I think you brought us on some ups and downs with you. Telling your story about moving through that process of the night before and processing yourself through all that. It seems like a lot.
It was.
What are some tips or ideas that you would give to some people that maybe are dealing with substance abuse or depression or anxiety? What are some tips that you could share with the people that are listening that maybe they're dealing with that, or maybe they know someone that's dealing with that?
So I think that a therapist is needed 100%. If you can get it through your work. I know I did it's called MHN, I think. And it's just like a program that a lot of corporate companies will do. And you call them, you don't even need to tell them really what's going on too much. They'll give you like sessions for free. It's all covered. That's something I used. And then if you have insurance, get evaluated, see if you can get on anything. I did not want to go, trust me, I did not want to go the medical route, but sometimes medication is needed for a little bit, say you're just on it for 6 months or 4 months or whatever, just do it for a little bit. And diet, healthy eating is a big impact. Exercise is huge. I try to go on runs at least, 4 times a week and just clear my head. I'm super into like essential oils. I use those all the time. Okay. Big into crystals. It's kind of a weird thing. I never understood it, but for some reason, it just keeps you grounded. Those are some of the things I do. I try to just find other people that have anxiety or, link up with AA. Even if it might not be for you, even a little bit of, AA can help anybody, especially I think the one thing about AA is the fact that there's no bullshit. There's no fakeness. There's just complete vulnerability. And I think that's something as humans, we all search for,
Sure. What do you say to the people that have that stigma around, going to therapy and think that it's a weakness or that I'm broken? What do you say to those people that maybe they feel like they need to go, but they don't have the strength to admit it to themselves?
I would just say that, the biggest thing in the world that you can do is admit to having a problem. It's hard to look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say, I have a problem and I need to fix it. And when you can start to do that, you can start to solve the problem. I didn't want to do it. I thought, I was a man. You have this stigma around being a man, right? It's this ultimate thing. It's like, I'm a man, I'm tough, I don't have emotions, that's just how society likes to make everybody think, right?
Sure.
Well, in a lot of cases, I think we're just as emotional as women, or not more in some senses, I grew up with 2 sisters, so, I have that a little bit in me already. But, you really just got to take a step back, take your ego out of it, and just toughen up and know that you're doing the right things for yourself. No one's going to blame you for trying to better yourself. So, just know that it's for the better,
What about families that are dealing with somebody with substance abuse? What can they do to support? Because sometimes I think you sometimes got to have to pull away, right? Sometimes you might, overstep your boundaries, right? You might, be like not victimize them, but like coddle them too much, right? Sometimes they have to kind of fall on their own. Can you explain how you would recommend families dealing with somebody with substance abuse?
Just be there, be a voice to listen to and lean on, and give them sources to go to. I think that, even as friends and family, you can abuse your friends and family, emotionally, by putting too much on them. I did that. I know I did that for years without realizing it. I think that you subconsciously do it, and you don't understand what tolls you're putting on people. I mean, you need to understand that whatever you say to somebody, whether it's big or small, it's going to have an emotional impact on them as well as you. So, it might be great that you get it off your chest, but you're putting it on somebody else's. So when you understand that, you are starting to damage things around you, you need to understand that you're a problem, and you need to figure out what you're doing to cause these problems. And, with family and stuff, I mean, you have to have boundaries. You have to set boundaries. You can't just let people keep doing the same crap over and over again. You have to be like, okay, I'm going to listen to you for 10 minutes, and then you're going to go call somebody. You have to be firm. It's love, right? It's tough love. And that's what you have to learn is the hard things to do are, not easy. So
You made two really good points there. You talk about, realizing that you're the common denominator and what's going on in your life, like realizing, hey, I'm the one stemming all the things that are happening, good or bad. And then setting those boundaries, that can be a tough thing for people with family members, and where they feel this obligation that they need to be around certain people, because they're family or friends for a long time. And I think it's really important to set those boundaries and make it very clear, like, hey, this is what I expect. This is how I expect to be treated. If you can't respect that, then, maybe we're not going to spend so much time together. And that can be tough for some people to swallow.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only like the people that are talking to you that need to set boundaries, but it's you personally too. I mean, I had to set a lot of boundaries and not talk to some friends for a while, or just let those friends go. I mean, it's kind of a big old earthquake, and like a big thing that just shakes your world. And it really makes you look at life in a different way, because you realize, okay, well, it's probably not the best idea to be hanging out with these people who just get messed up all the time. It's probably a good thing to hang out with people that have aspirations, goals, maybe not similar, but at least they're doing something to better their lives. And then in turn, you are who you hang around. I mean, there's no better way to put it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's super true, man.
So
Nick, what are you involved in now, man? Like, what project are you putting out there right now? And how can people find your music, find what you're working on?
So I'm on Spotify, and I'm on SoundCloud and Apple Music, under Nick B. That's my old DJ name. I'm working on a new album right now currently.
Okay.
And that's gonna be it's gonna be a little while. It's probably gonna be about a year before I actually get anything out. Just because I'm gonna try and get it on a label and do it the right way. And it's gonna be completely different than all the stuff that I've actually produced recently. So that's gonna be huge. I'm actually working on starting my own business too, to help people with mental illness and stuff that they're dealing with. And I'm hoping to have that starting in the next 6 months, get that up and running.
Awesome.
It's basically just going to be like a safe place for people to talk to, and a community to grow within each other, and it'll kind of just be like it's going to be like in the form of AA, but not AA. It's going to be, take the AA out of it. It might be like a aftermath, like re-implementing people from after they go into addiction, they're going through AA. It's more of like a mental health, also I want to work with people who are like autistic, maybe bipolar, anxiety, depression. Want to give back and help, have a place for homeless to come and have a community for them to talk about their struggles and try to get people off the streets, just give back. It's going to be a nonprofit organization. So I feel like I owe it to myself to help people, because when you go through these things, it's important to guide people, No one was sitting there holding my hand telling me, I have anxiety, no one was sitting there telling me like, oh, you don't need to, take that drug, or you don't need to go through these, trials to find your music. I mean, yeah, it was kind of brutal to find my music, but, I feel like that's what makes a musician and an artist good, is going through these hard times. But I feel like, just those are some of the things I'm working on. I'm really excited to start the business. I'm actually more excited to start that than do anything with music, to be honest. And I think that's huge.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not an easy process. You guys are doing your business. You know how it goes,
Yeah, definitely.
But,
there's
we do know
always
that.
challenges in
yeah,
the new things that you take on. There's always new problems that arise, regardless of what it is. So,
yeah,
Nick, we definitely wish you luck on that, and all your stories, I'm sure, will help people out there. And I think you can really. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with what you went through, and I think it'll be able to help people that you end up connecting with out there. So
yeah,
look forward to hearing in the future, Nick, what you got going on and how the business
yeah,
kicks off for you, man. So
yeah.
we like to wrap up the show with our guests, and with the title of our podcast in mind, Actions and Limits, we like to ask the questions. What would you say is the number one action that you would have people out there implement into their lives that could really make a difference?
I would say just be upfront with what you have going on, and come to terms with it. Make it a point every day to get healthier for yourself, no one else, not your family, not your friends, but just for you.
Sure.
Do the best you can do for yourself. That's the biggest action you can do.
I like that, man. I like that. And
Yeah.
then the opposite side of that are these, self-imposed limits that we have on ourselves. What have you seen is a large limit that people place on themselves that we need to remove immediately?
Pat yourself on the back. I think that the biggest thing for me is I never gave myself enough credit. I never loved myself. And that's where really the root of the problem starts. If you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. You can't find harmony in anything. So if you don't work on you and those big things right there, like, it's all love, and if you can't find that, you're not going to find happiness. You're not going to find resolution. You're not going to find the answers to, your problems, or that void, inside you. So, just have love for yourself,
like
and
that.
boundaries, set those boundaries and don't cross them,
I like it. Great insight, Nick. Thank you so much for coming on here, man. I know our audience got a lot of value of you coming on and sharing your story, and looking forward to, hearing more from what you got. And when that album comes out, we can check it out, and definitely, good luck to you on your business and moving through that process. So Nick, thank you so much for joining us here on the show, man.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime. I like it. That was a nice process.
All right, Paul. So glad Nick could come on the show. I know you guys had a conversation before, and so you had a little bit of insight into the story Nick was going to share. But I think his story, man, if it connected with one person out there, then it was great enough to have him on the show. And I definitely wish him luck on his music and his coaching business, when he gets that up and running. So glad he could come on, man.
Yeah, I'm very proud of him to share that story, because it was very vulnerable. You could tell that it was very personal to him, which would be very personal to me if I shared that same story.
Yeah.
But vulnerability is a strength, and he's learning that. And the sky's the limit for this kid. He's a great kid, and if he wants to pursue the music, he can do that. If he wants to pursue the therapy, helping people, he'll do that too. I mean, guy's an intelligent man, and I'm so happy to have him on the show.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear that type of insight, and that's why I wanted him to kind of expand on that a little bit, on the stigma behind therapy. I know we've had a couple of guests come on the show and talk about that, but I don't think that's talked about enough. how it's okay. Like, it doesn't mean that you're broken, that you need to go talk to someone, whether it's a coach or a therapist. Obviously, that there are different processes, but don't think that it's something wrong with you, because you need therapy. Like, we all need somebody to talk to, and sometimes it's deeper, and it really, you need someone there to kind of like help get that out and help you learn the tools and techniques to process those emotions and process those feelings. So glad you could talk about that, and hopefully that impacted someone listening. So
Yeah, it resonated when he talked about, hey, you know what? You can really abuse your family and friends and just give out your negative laundry and really give them, you release all this energy to them, right? You feel good. Now they're bogged down by your feelings, going, oh, is he okay? And this and that. And so that's why it's important not to do that. And it's important to reach out to a therapist or a coach who's trained for these things, that can process these things and that won't affect them. And you're not feeling guilty that you're putting out that negative energy to them, because that's their job.
Yeah. I think that was in a book I read. It talked about passing on the poison. When you have that negative emotion going on, you just pass that poison to someone else. You never fully get rid of it, but now someone else has that they're carrying around with them, and that's not healthy for anybody. The relationships you have, whether it's family, friends, spouse. So glad he could come on the show, man, and share that story with us. So I know you said you had a question in the email, so we can wrap up the show with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. Everyone out there, make sure to continue to send your questions into actionsandlimits@gmail.com to get your questions featured on the show. I'm excited for the question, Paul.
This is from Patty from Arizona, and it's, Paul, where do you feel the most peace? And for me, Patty, it's when I'm walking along the beach. I just love it. And I let my senses go, like my sight, my hearing, my touch, and try not to be so vocal, but I have the other set and my smell too. And it just makes me, and try to be present. And once I do that and I go back to my car, I feel so refreshed. So it's walking on the beach.
Yeah, that's definitely something I missed, not living near the coast anymore, being able to get to the beach. But yeah, I like how you brought up the smell. Most people don't really think about that, but our sense of smell actually triggers more memory than any other sense. We remember about 60% of what we smell, as opposed to 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see. And so I think it's important to take in all the senses. And I like that you brought that up, because that can really, trigger a lot of memories and really get you grounded. So great question. And I liked your answer to that, Paul. So another great show. It's another year, starting off good, man. I'm excited to see what the rest of this year is going to hold. We got a long way ahead of us, a lot of great guests coming up, a lot of great things going on for both of us and everybody out there. So yeah, another great show, man.
Yes, for Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.